Okay, are we ready to rock and roll? Already ready to rock and roll. How y'all doing, guys? I'm still letting some of the minis dry. I wrote y'all some more audio stuff. Okay, now we'll get situated here. Let's just ready to see where I'm at here. Okay, what I want is I got a special audio thing for you. Now, guys, yeah, this happens to do with the Dragons of Destiny series. It's just a little bit of an Easter egg in it. Like I said, there's some spoilers in this, so you may be careful when you listen to this. But like I said, this is for you guys. This is some ideas. It's just concept stuff. Chris, if you're watching this, you'll be all right with it. Adam, y'all too. I think y'all will be okay with it. Like I said, it's just residual ideas. You'll be able to use it for game stuff. This is OGL content. By the way, guys, if you don't want anything spoiled like this, a lot of this stuff that I do run, this is for DMs only. Okay? So if you're running a DragonLance game, you might want to be a little hesitant if you watch it. But like I said, it just gives you some ideas. The stuff that plays out, nothing is set in stone. It's just some ideas. Okay, just give me a second here, guys, and I'll see to get us set up here. All right. Make sure that we're rolling. Now, I'm not playing any music this time. Damn thing. Played it once because of goofball. I'm not doing that again. I told him. I ain't beefing with nobody. Like I said, we were talking about internet trolls. Anybody come over? But like I said, no. It's just you have to watch what you talk about on Twitch because it. Like I said, it's one of them things. They don't like violence. No violence. No indication of violence. Talking of violence, you know, that kind of thing. That's understandable. We're just getting ready here, guys. That's somebody. Oh, that's me. That's me watching. Okay. Well. Just a sec here, guys. We're getting ready. I'm getting ready. I'm just getting myself ready here. Alright. You hear that hawk out there? There. Alright. Let's go to the Scriborium. I love that.
Gone. She's gone. The other bewildered version of Tasslehoff buried his face in his hands and started bawling. It's all my fault. I should have never used the time travel device to find Destina again. It's not the Destina you knew. Karamorn looked balefully at younger Kit, and caught himself in the irony. This Bertelbach lady had no idea who you were, Tars. it's why she started screaming and asking if you were family of the Kender at the docks. You took someone from a place completely unfamiliar with your circumstances. Karamorn put his hand on the sobbing version of Tar's shoulder and offered him a handkerchief. Isn't there something we can do for her? Astrid looked up at Fizban. This great foundry of souls, it hatches eggs from yolks. The companions are currently at a demiplane of Godshome connected to the plane of Arcadia, a sort of celestial heaven of the highest order. Currently prime material bashers are not allowed to leave the celestial halls, essentially making the place somewhat of a gilded cage for them. Even Fall from Grace, a succubus in her own right, but has been granted temporary permission by Fizban to stare out the windows yonder there at the pretty sparkling Arcadian lake for a bit before you go back to Sigil, my lady. Much thanks to you. I will indeed put in a good word to the governors of Sigil to make sure the godsmen replace some of that building of yours. Although I dunno if it will take eons to do. Confounded bureaucrats. Council of Whitestone, with dumber people, you've not seen this side of Avernus or Arcadia. No control over Sigil. I'm afraid. Oh, I won't be going back for a while. A good stomachful every few eons to wash the smell of the foundry out of me nose from that place, and I get tired of walking uphill or downhill all the time. It is beautiful indeed. Fall from Grace smiled and turned solemnly to stare out the window at the faraway lake of Arcadia. The fact she, a succubus, was even allowed anywhere remotely this close to a plane of such lawful good purity was unfathomable, but a boon for helping Fizban and Tasslehoff was a glimpse of an Arcadian lake. Yes, well. Fizban looked down irritably at the Kender maid, who held the phylactery that she'd fought back and won from Azrael. Oh no. Little miss, you shouldn't be handling that. Give me that. I mean it, little lady, right this instant. Fizban snatched the phylactery away from the Kender maid, who let him have it with an indignant huff. You little hat stealer, now go take this key and wait with Kellen and Kit at the hatchery. Oh, and don't lose that key. I'll be along shortly as soon as we've had time to console the young lad. Kelendros is the protector of young reborn Kitiara. He is essentially a good draconian, so as to say an evil chromatic dragon, whose blood, Ski's blood, was obtained from Stum Brightblade's sword, and later used to hatch a counterpart of the evil draconians, a noble draconian. The two were hatched and conceived by an alternate version of Racelyn Magir, who had been hiding in Sigil. At the same time his other counterpart was being hunted by the fiends this Racelyn had brought along the Karamorn he'd rescued from the realm of dread. However, the Mercy Killers find and kill this Racelyn, forcing this Karamorn to flee with Kelendros, called Kellen for short, and young Kitiara, who had been reformed and were waiting with other Racelyn in Sigil when they were attacked. DM's note: Azrael the evil undead dwarf materializes in the hallways the hallways or the corridor, are the residual pathway, in which souls transition to the planes of alignment outside the portals. During this encounter with older Tars, younger Tars, and newly bereaved Tars, these Tasslehoffs are rather miffed that older Tars now has a blue gem in his chest and they didn't get one, so Fizban isn't being fair. And why is this Tars so important anyway? Azrael the dwarf materializes after younger Tars foolishly allows Azrael's captured phylactery. This was an attempt by the fiends to get their assassin into the foundry to destroy one of the companions. Azrael had been temporarily disabled when Racelyn had used a phylactery on him, and then Strahd killed Azrael for his failure. Astrid de Morris had escaped with Azrael and Ticklemop's phylacteries right before Racelyn had tossed her into the portal prior to Tars and Racelyn encountering Strahd. A bereaved and confused Tars came through the portal into the foundry and mistakenly handled the phylactery that Azrael was in, and once in the hallways it allows Azrael to reform in spectral Helminian form, who then takes the phylactery and attacks and kills the version of Destina, who ran into the other two versions of Tasslehoff while running away in bewilderment from the version of Tars, who thought he had found his version of Destina. But he had mistakenly encountered the Destina Bertelbach, who then was drawn into the fog of the negative plane of dread, as they fled into the hallways of memory. These are of course another version of the memory mirrors that Tyndaphilus used to fool Soth. Each memory forms much as the haunted nightmare in Sylvanesti did, and it was during these events the form of Azrael attacked and seemingly kills Destina Back. This of course sets off another encounter where Azrael attempts to reform and get out of the Soul Forge, even going so far as attempting to attack Fizban. After an intense plane-spanning tussle, Fizban's avatar is miraculously saved and Destina's phylactery retrieved when Astrid, who had currently been stuck with Fizban's hat atop her head, the hat enabled her to fly as well as do extraordinary things, but the ward cast upon it which prevented Fizban from being struck by objects, or prevented him from being robbed when he was sleeping, turned out to be an inconvenience for Astrid, who immediately would not stand for it once she found it made it difficult for her to throw a piece of popcorn up and catch it in her mouth. You do not deny Astrid Damaris her popcorn. Astrid saves Fizban by activating the portal to the elemental plane of fire and sends what's left of Azrael's undead carcass into it. And saving the phylactery, he'd stabbed Destina Back with. Fizban, to Astrid's surprise, simply lifts his hat from her head and replaces hers, which by now this time is rendered to a dirty mop resembling so much as a very dirty turban that had been sat on and squashed. You ruined my heart, Fizban. You silly old fart gobble of a wizard. I kept your hat safe for you and looks what you do to mine, Fizban. You naughty silly button. Astrid holds up her hat to Fizban, who is embarrassed that indeed our tussle with that nasty disagreeable fellow Azrael, it's ruined your hat, poor girl. I am sorry about borrowing things and ruining them unintentionally. Fizban adjusted his hat. There now, maybe I can make amends. He touched the mop of fabric in Astrid's hand and in a flash of light her expertly woven and embroidered head wrap was restored to new so much that the long purple tassel that hung from the top was restored and shimmered with a sparkle when the light hit it. Astrid giggled happily and skipped off, regardless of bereaved Tars now sobbing so loudly it was echoing off the walls of the chamber halls. We need to help him. Blue Gem Tasslehoff looked at Tanis and Laurana solemnly. No, how can we? Tanis said. He's seen too much. We've seen too much. We will all go back home eventually. This will be a dream. Wait, Laurana turned to stop Tanis, who began to follow the others back down the hall. We can't send him back to Krynn like that, not with what he knows. Tars looked indignantly at Dalamar, who interjected, and then Tars looked down to see the memory wand in his hand. A flick and he'd forget everything. No, Dalamar, you can't use that yet. We agreed, when this was over we'd all use the wand to set things right again. I believe your departed Shalafi mentioned his conversation with Strahd about separation and division. Fall from Grace paused. Hear him out. Perhaps the worst memories of this place should be wiped from his mind, but let him keep something of what he loved. Just as your memory of love saved us all when Chislev asked you what could change the nature of a man. Ravel mocked you. Takasis was doubtful of the god's mercy, but you showed remorse and wished to heal the pain wrought by your dark magics upon the world of Krynn. I ask you, Dalamar the Dark, please let this Tasslehoff retain at least something he must have loved. I will. Dalamar nodded to Tanis. We are in agreement then, only this exception, for the moment. I will destroy any abomination, if it indeed forms from whatever may come of this act of charity. Dalamar bit off the last word. The rest of them had ignored him and were following Fizban down the hall. Asterisk later. Scene opens. Tasslehoff, Blue Gem, a grieving weeping Tasslehoff. And young Tars enter a chamber with Fizban where Astrid Damaris and an odd Dabus, by the name of birth and a twin name of born, have gathered around what looks to be a huge glowing egg sitting in the middle of a glowing pool with a walkway leading to it. The phylactery has been mounted in a receptacle. What is left of Destina Back is inside. Fall from Grace looks at Fizban questionably, but nods in agreement. She kneels before the weeping version of Tars and waits for him to acknowledge her. Master Barefoot. Blue Gem Tars watched as the sad Tars looked into Grace's placid blue eyes and wiped his own on his sleeve. Can you tell me a story about your friend Destina, everything you remember? Anything honest that you loved about her? She wanted to be a Kender. Tars sniffed. She wore a magic ring for so long, I thought she was. I thought we'd be married. I'd have married her even if she wasn't a Kender. But she's gone. No. Fall from Grace said. I believe there is enough of her left within you to remember. Really? The Kender blinked back his tears. He watched in wide-eyed wonder as Grace produced a single fine golden needle from nowhere. Cut flash to ominous music shot of needle hitting Tars in the finger in haunted silver nesty making Blue Gem Tars wince, but he retains his composure, as he himself, as well as Astrid are curious to see what the large egg is for. Ouch, okay. A spot of blood I guess. Tars blinked. Grace took the drop on a handkerchief and handed it to Fizban, who only smiled in thanks, and nodded toward the succubi. It was as if perhaps the two were very familiar with this process, as it's probably not unknown to other denizens of the outer planes. Fizban beckoned to the Kender to approach the egg, and with some help lifted weeping Tars up onto the pedestal next to the phylactery, now stuck into the side of the egg. A small orb materialized out of nowhere beside of it and orbited like a small moon to hover in front of him. Is that really a good idea? Tanis asked as Laurana shushed him indignantly. He's got a habit of breaking things, Fizban, remember the dragon orb? Yes. Fizban stammered as weeping Tars indignantly started yelling at Tanis, and taunting and calling him names. Pay him no, never mind. Hush now, Tanis half-elven. You upset the boy so. Now then, boy, place your hands on that little orb there. Yes, go ahead. You have my permission. The weeping Kender seemed satisfied. After all, the older version of him had a blue gem in chest. The younger one still had one of his parents alive. So what would it hurt to let this Tars have something to do as well? The Kender placed his hands on the orb and waited. It suddenly flared with a warm light, and a soft glow began to cover the Kender, as well as egg. Tanis shook his head. Fizban winked at him. Concentrate, Master Barefoot. Fall from Grace continued. Grace nodded to Astrid Demoris, who also placed her small hands atop the orb while whispering over and over. Much power in a name, more power in a memory. To be remembered you will never die, to die is to be forgotten. Much power in a name, more power in a memory. Much power in a name, more power in a memory. The chant continued until Tanis and Laurana realized Astrid was reciting something in Old Salamnic, which she realized was the Chislev prayer hum that accompanies the Kender funeral march. Always before the spring returned, the earth within its cycle spun the air, and flowers, grass, and fern assured and cradled by the sun. The orb flared brighter, and with a resounding flash, and a hum slowed to a mere pulse. The light and the orb disappeared. Fizban picked the two Kenders up and set them down again. Astrid took her handkerchief and patted grieving Tars' face with it, stopping only to introduce herself to this cousin Tars. I have two cousin. Now 3. No lies. How did Vorlo have 3 babies within such age? Kenderkin. Do not birth more than 2 babies in a term. Most Kender families don't have kids more than 4 years apart, and Kender twins, or tuplets, are extremely rare. Island Kender do reproduce more than Ancelonian Kender, but Ergothians are commonly known to raise one child until it's grown, and can give the other full attention. Well, let's see. The grieving Tasslehoff begins to tell the story of how he and Destina came to meet. Refer to the Dragons of Destiny series *, Let me know when you get back, suck. Now we wait. Fizban said. In unison all the Kender groaned, because after having to wait for Kender is agony. It must bake. Astrid clapped her hands. Like Kender Pack, I make best Kender Pack. Weeping Tars nodded in agreement. Good things take time. Bad things take forever. Dalamar mumbled. Tanis and Laurana remained silent and decided to say nothing except listen to this version of Tars talk about a radically different KRYNN, familiar in so many ways, but completely horrifying and alien with its unknown revelations and outcomes for the alternate versions of themselves. Trailer tease. An alternate version of black-robed Raistlin stands and stares at a version of the old knight barefoot still trapped in haunted Sylvanesti with Vorlo, his lying on the ground battered and bloody, his eyes filled with hate and rage. What do you think you'll accomplish with this Magir? Vorlo is gone now. Barefoot looks down at the form of Tasslehoff's mother in his arms, her small head covered in scratches and burns from a hellhound. She may be dead or close to it. I'm giving you another chance. Raistlin approaches him with a phylactery vial in his hand. You were the only father that Tasslehoff really knew, and so you shall be again, to protect him and his mother Vorlo for all time. No. Don't touch her. Barefoot raises up to strike Raistlin and the mage disappears in a haze of color, only to reappear behind him, and there is a flash of light. No time to react. Pain. Then nothing. The boundaries of the plains. The chain of the grey gem, to be free of the cage, that was our prime material world, to be able to venture to plains beyond. Raistlin Magir, you bastard. Barefoot cursed him. You will thank me someday. Suddenly the mage voice broke into laughter cut short by coughing. Still can't get rid of the OL affliction, eh? Barefoot mocked him. Goodbye. Raistlin sneered. Though we may not meet again in this world. His expression softened, but his owlgas eyes remained unblinking as he began Ast Uzala Misasrum. Vorlo Blackbriar Leafdew's eyes open just in time to see Raistlin and his hourglass pupils advancing toward them. Nothing they can do to stop him this time. The bastard might have won after all. Kitiara. Always before the spring returned. Vorlo closes her eyes. Flash to black. Cut to images of a Kender who looks like Tasslehoff, but also like Vorlo. Your name is Tildon. You've traveled the stars, and you'll see the plains as well. You'll travel the stars for her. You will find her again eventually. It's okay, Kaelin. Vorlo whispered. Everything will be okay. My baby, we'll find his father again. We'll find him again. I hope so, Kaelin nodded. Every little boy needs a real father. Hush, Vorlo snapped. He's alive, and while he's not here you'll do for a daddy for a little while longer. Now hold this little squirt, while I jimmy open this lock, and we'll borrow some tools to get those leg irons off you. Be quiet, he gets grumpy when I wake him up without a reason. We'll get Tassel some sweets once we're inside the bakery. Come on, Barefoot, and don't be a klutz this time. Oh, don't mind him, he sleeps through a hurricane. Sawing logs the little buster is, tired as squat, but wouldn't take no for answer when it came time to bust you out of jail. Come on now, inside before he wakes everybody up out here. Vorlo and Barefoot crept into the darkened alleyway, and eased the lock open to the door of a bakery and went in.
We'll be right back, y'all. Alright, guys. I'm gonna make this stream a little short for the moment. But I am gonna port this over to YouTube at least. So you'll have a nice little neat audio segment. It's about 26 minutes. So yeah, I'm gonna keep that one short for that. And like I said, guys, I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break because I've still got to let those minis cure a little bit. I'm not yet finished on Taz yet. He's still drying. I've got to do some touch-ups on him. I was going to work on Gold Moon a little bit, but what I did most of the day was I wrote. And so that's what I did for most of the day. But like I said, I touched him up. And now that he's dried and cured a little bit, he starts to look a little bit better. So it is starting to improve some. It's not looking bad at all. I'm quite impressed with it. The camera don't do it any justice. Like I said, I'll take some more pictures of it. These are the other ones. See? Look nice, don't they? Look wonderful. Alright, guys. But anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully, this won't be the last time that we have something to do. But anyway, this has been a DragonLance stream, and thank you guys for watching and tuning in. This has been Engine Joe. Y'all roll on.